Hi, and welcome to my music column podcast. And today we're going to talk about the Wayne's World 2 Fender Stratocaster made in Mexico. The mystery, the myths, and the facts. But we'll have a little chat about the movie to start with. Starred Michael Myers and Dana Garvey. And it's about Wayne and his best pal Garth, and they are going to create a rock festival which they want to star in. And the storyline is based around that. And Wayne goes into a music shop and he sees this, the 1964 Hendrix Stratocaster behind a glass case, and he goes, "You will be mine." So we're going to talk about that just in a moment, but just want to tell you a little bit about the movie and the promotion behind it. Right, the movie was released in December the 10th, 1993. It had some real big competition. You had Schindler's List, which was released. You had Mrs. Doubtfire, which was released. And you had Sister Act 2, which was released all around the same time. Wayne's World 2 was number one in the box office for its first week and grossed $30.5 million. But it was only box office for 1 week. It was in the cinemas for 6 to 8 weeks. The movie cost $40 million to make and produce, and it grossed in the end $48 million. So financially, it didn't make that much money. It made an $8 million profit. But people still talk about Wayne's World 2 and this guitar. There's a lot of mystery around this guitar. It's the first guitars, the Wayne's World Fender Stratocaster guitar, were made and produced in 1993 with the MN3 serial number. They're very rare for a reason. By 1994, the start of 94, Fender wanted to jump on the promotion tail of the movie. They're obviously in contact with the movie makers. They knew the Fender Stratocaster Olympic White Hendrix guitar was going to be part of that movie. So Fender didn't really have to make much of a promotional campaign. They didn't have to invest too much money because the movie was doing the promotion for them. So when we talk about the guitar, it's a standard Mexican Stratocaster. And the only thing that you know about that this is a signature, on the back, if you look closely, you can see the Wayne's World 2 movie logo on the back plate. Also, for a Mexican Stratocaster, the hardware was stamped with Fender, which was, if you look onto the bridge saddles, you should be able to see the Fender logo. And on the machine heads, you should be able to see Fender machine heads. Right, this didn't cost Fender much at all. So all they need to do was just produce the Mexican standard Stratocaster, which they did. And they had a small release of the guitar in 1993, and then they were going big time then from January, February onwards with a mass production from the Ensenada Mexican factory. So all the bodies were made, all the necks were made. So we're talking 3,000 to 5,000 cut out bodies of the Stratocaster waiting to be sprayed up, painted, hardware put on, the Wayne's World backplate to put on. So everything is going great. Fender are going to make a huge profit in the back of the Wayne's World 2. Then disaster. On February the 11th, 1994, the Essenanda factory burnt to the ground. Apparently the fire started in the spray room. Now when we talk in the factory burnt down, we mean it all burnt down, everything. Every wooden body was turned to ash, all the necks were turned to ash. We're talking hardware melted, we're talking pickups destroyed, melted, wiring. There was nothing left in the Mexican factory. Big panic for Fender now, because they had relied on this run of Wayne's World 2 Stratocasters, and they'd ploughed quite a bit of work in this Mexican factory. They were just going to be producing these for a couple of months. Obviously there had been a few other guitars, Telecasters, and standard Telecasters and standard Stratocasters produced, but mainly 90% of the time it's going to be the Wayne's World. Complete disaster. They needed to produce these because it was a quick profit. They had shareholders, and they promised the shareholders, we're going to make a lot of money in this on a low output of cash. So anyway, how do they get the Wayne's World 2 Stratocaster out? The myth is that only 250 were ever made after 1994, and the run was ended by the end of summer 94. That we don't know. The guess is 1,500 to 2,500 were produced. That's still rare, and they were only in production for 1 year. Now, what Fender did, they imported or exported from their Corona factory in California all the wooden bodies, all the necks, hardware, bridges, machine heads. A lot came from Asia, especially the hardware itself. We're talking pickups, the specially stamped Fender hardware as well. So this is another myth again. Where did they come from? Were they already in Mexico? No, they got melted. The only ones in the USA would have been on their high-end US Stratocasters. So are these Fender stamped hardware American? That is something we don't know. Did they come from Asia? Did they come from the Chinese factory? I think they were called Peng. We don't know, because a lot of the paperwork Fender had in Mexico was destroyed as well, and so they don't even know how many Wayne's World 2 Stratocasters were produced. Anyway, their estimate is up to, I think, about 2,500. But we are going to be talking about the actual guitar itself. How much of this is American? How much of it is Mexican? Well, we know that they had to send every part down to California. So the Corona factory had thousands of pre-cut Stratocaster bodies. They had the necks. So they were sent down to Mexico. Now, were they pre-painted? They weren't. Apparently, they had one coat of undercoat just to protect them. Then you can ask yourself the question. Fender said they set up like a factory line of tented. You know, it was like a supply chain, and they were spraying the bodies in these tents. They were putting the machine heads on. They were putting the electrics in, the pickups in. I'm finding that really difficult to believe, because, you know, where would they have got the technology from? Where would they have, got the machinery from? The sprays to actually do all this, but apparently they did. So that is the mystery of how this got created. Now, they actually say as well that the pickups were US standard pickups. I'll say no, they weren't, because when I bought this guitar in 1994, the pickups weren't great. They are ceramic Fender pickups, Mexican made. The reason I know that is I actually took the standard Mexican pickups out. I've got them in a box now. I put US standard pickups back in it because I was touring a lot. I was touring with Jerry Donahue. This was actually Jerry Donahue's spare guitar on the Robert Johnson tour book of the UK. So when Jerry tested the pickups on this, he was really pleased. He knew these were US standard pickups. So that myth, I think we can say, didn't happen. So I think they came from Asia. I think they came from the Squire factories in Japan and sent to Mexico. So I think the only US here is the body and the neck. I think the hardware is Japanese, or from the Asian market, from the Squire factories, which would really be, the big possibility, because I can't see Fender US sending down high-end pickups, even though that they wanted these guitars out ASAP. Right, the serial number on my guitar is MN405784. If you can see it there. Right, that date is very important. That date puts it about April 1994. The fire happened in February 1984, so 2 months later this was produced. Without doubt, this is American body, American neck, and the date sets it there. It was just post-fire. I'm not saying the ones which were built maybe in August, September. I know the run came to an end about November. Fender said they'd set up their factory within 3.5 months after the fire. So that would put it about end of May, maybe June. And then there was a small run. But the run ended. The run ended in by the end of 1994. So the Fender Stratocaster, the Wayne's World 2-1, is a real enigma. Is it a US Mex? Is it all Mexican? Well, legally it's all Mexican because it's got a Mexican serial number on it. But there's not one part on here which is actually made in Mexico. Body USA, neck USA, hardware pickups Asia, from the Japanese Squire factory. And let's not doubt this. The Japanese Squire was an absolute brilliant guitar. It's making big money on the second-hand markets. So this is good. This is a real quality guitar. Now, what I want to say with this guitar as well is, if you look closely at it, there's hardly a mark on it. It's got a lovely neck, soft C contour neck on it. Lovely body. The paintwork, you're talking, this Fender is saying that 7 to 8 coats of paint, 3 or 4 coats of varnish. That takes weeks and weeks and weeks. You could be talking the drying process. So it could very well have been painted in the Corona factory. The wood is the cheaper poplar wood and not alder, and the reason we know that was that Fender around this time were using a lot of poplar wood and Fender, so this is guaranteed Poplar. It's a nice lightweight as well. It's lovely. And I'm going to just give you a little test of the pickups. So now we're on the bridge pickup. I'm going through my Fender Blues Junior Mark IV. That's my gigging amp. So this is the bridge pickup. Second setting, which will be first and the second one. That sounds really nice. Okay, now we're on the third, which will be just the middle pickup. We're getting quite smoky now. Love the sound of that one. My favourite so far is the second setting, just those two. Okay, so now we're going to go on the fourth setting, which will be the middle and a bit of that. Ooh, that's warm. That sounds really, really nice. So now we're going to go on just onto this pickup, yeah? So we're on the neck pickup. Again, that sounds gorgeous. They say that a few of the Wayne's World 2 Stratocasters had a couple of the US standard pickups in them. They might do. Mine didn't. Mine definitely had the ceramic ones, but now they've got the US ones. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed that little talk about the Wayne's World 2 Fender Stratocaster made in Mexico. The mystery and the myth which was surrounded by the fire, and how all the parts ended up in Mexico, and the Fender Wayne's World 2 Stratocaster made its entrance into the guitar music shops. Again, they said 250 were made. It was anything up to 2,500, but then that is still rare. And the bodywork, I've got to say, is outstanding. That's tipping me to the USA. And so if you see a little Wayne's World, if you see a Wayne's World, check that it's got serial number MN4. If it's got the MN3 in it, you've got a real rarity, because there was only a couple of hundred of those ones actually made before they went into 1994 and then the fire. Anyway guys, take care, and I'll see you next week for another story, and we'll talk a bit of vinyl, and I've got one of the vinyls behind me which we're going to have a little chat about. Anyway, take care. See you now.